Chair Generals, this is Gamer 1745 here, and we're going to be continuing with our Strategic Command World War I series. Can Germany win here? We'll see how all this goes. Just checking the various. Yep, it looks like we are on the interwebs. Interwebs, yes. Hello, Arno. Good to see you here. That's the current big picture situation. Zoom in a bit. Right. Okay. Well, let's take a look at the Western Front. Let's remove the counter so we can see Cambrai is empty, obviously. Sedan, no fortifications. And down here, no fortifications, and up there. Right. Now, if we were to, we could grind on the tanks. We have some of our own tanks now. Slow, it looks like. Okay, they can get up to here, it looks like. Right. Yeah. See, I'm playing this as if I were a World War I general here. We attack when things are very favorable. Now, this rear area here, they need to be both upgraded and reinforced. We're going to reinforce them first. These guys could be reinforced, but they really need to be upgraded. Toss up here, but we're going to upgrade first. Fortunately, my artillery's a little far away. We got to long range aircraft is nice, but what we really need to do here is max it out. You out too. Now, right now, if we fly without escort, I think we will get shot all to hell. So let's see about what we can upgrade with them. Looks like we can take this unit out. These guys can come up here. Yes, Arno, I see your test. You are testing, I see. And testing over on Twitch, yes. I see you. You are seen. Do you feel seen, Arno? You're down to just 3 shells. Oh. We will shoot 1 shell. we will reinforce these guys. Well, no, upgrade them. These guys need upgrading, so we're going to switch these guys out. These guys are hurt badly. See, these guys have 74% readiness, 39% morale. These guys, 58, 21. Now they'll probably get better once we reinforce them, but we're going to swap them out here and then that. And yes, it got better, but still their morale's low. Those guys need updating as well, and so do these guys. So let's swap these out. Make sure we are the most up-to-date that we can be. Well, about dealing with these Frenchmen over here. And either of those, these guys can. Good. Good, good, good. Now, looks like they have completely fallen back here. So to me, that means we can push in. But we need to do this carefully, make sure that we can come in here and entrench. Four action points. They're upgraded, so we're going to move them in here. Maybe they, well, the mountain troops would do better up in the mountains, I would say. But swap these two out. That way we could still, by just mobility, yes. Mobility costs a lot, which, if you're talking a lot of motorization, yeah, I can well see that as being fairly expensive. Okay, so now we're actually pushing into Italian territory there. Did you hear me, Arno? I replied to your tests. Okay, you need to be reinforced. Yes, good, 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 good. People can hear me. Maybe. Okay, now. Oh, they've really pounded my German unit down here hard. So what we're going to do is attack now. That was mostly just to soften them up a little bit. Okay, you guys. Hello, Singh. Good to see you here on a Saturday. Move to there. Ooh, they've got 2 guys back to hold the city. There we go. And infantry weapons, yes, we like that. Oh, what's our... Ooh, we're low. We can't maybe afford too much of that. We can afford maybe. See about moving him to the front line here soon. Ooh, you are in bad shape. Let's do that. Keep you alive, but we don't have the MPP to just fully up to it. Any news about America? Well, looks like Trump stopped the war in Gaza. I don't know if that's about America, but yeah, all right. Let's... Why they want to be down to 2? Okay, they got 8 shells. So they got lots of shells. We got lots of infantry around here. They are somewhat damaged, but I think with 8 shells, ooh, we have these guys here. Fighter development. Let's first reinforce them because they're in such bad shape. Yep, I don't think we'll wait to get all proper recon bombs. So let's... Well, very good, Singh. Family's important. Yeah, they're just putting it all on here. Uh-oh. Well, they got it, and they're going to occupy, well, He's going to occupy the fortress there. Come down and hold that. So we are pushing on the eastern front. Ah, is he visiting India? How interesting. Yeah, I did hear about Keir Stammer visiting India. I didn't know how well that went. Only 3 shells. I think we'll wait until we save up some more shells. But what we will do here is swap these 2 out and upgrade. And then we'll next turn push to the rear of Grodno, however you say that. And then, oh, these guys are way out of date. So are these. They're sitting right on the front line, those. They haven't been able to update. Okay, 6 shells. 6 barrages. These 4 on these guys. Let's go 5. There we go. We got the horsies that have pushed very deep into us. These guys need reinforcing. Yeah. Don't know why you'd have bad relations with Britain. Don't know if you... Well, I understand that India's primary adversary is Pakistan. I understand that the Taliban has a rough relationship with Pakistan. But nations need to remember the enemy of my enemy isn't always my friend. And I don't know that a Pakistan controlled by Taliban people would be better than the current Pakistan. I know they see it, or could see it as simply that no, they may not envision the world in which Pakistan actually loses to the Taliban. So they just see it as a weakening Pakistan. But I would advise not allying with the Taliban. And it's not just because I'm an American and hate them or something. No, it's just that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Singh, and you very well could know much better than I do, but the reason there is a Pakistan is they wanted to have a, somewhat Islamic state, at least. and not just be, ah, hey, because there are, um, obviously, and for, I know Singh knows all this, but other people watching, and there's just a few right now, but people do watch this later. The main religion of modern day India is, of course, Hinduism. Um, but there are other religions functioning in India with, my understanding is, at least millions of followers. One of them being Sikhs. Now, they've had some rough times with the Hindu majority, but the Sikhs, which I know a bit about. There's also the Jainists, which I know very little about them, but they're another religion if I'm there. And um, don't know that there's much Buddhist left in India, but there are some Christians, and is in the millions, I believe, not nowhere near a majority or even a large, percentage of a minority, but they're there. And so it seems that the Hindus are relatively tolerant of people living there with a different religion, so long as they're not trying to, shall we say, impose their religion upon the Hindus or whatever, however you want to say that. And I do correct me if you think I'm significantly wrong, Singh. But so it wasn't. It was the it was sort of the wanting to be ruled by Muslims in a Muslim state, etc., 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 that forms the creation of Pakistan in the early days, East and West Pakistan, and then later Bangladesh, with India's help, breaks off from Pakistan. So, trying to ally with the Taliban against the Pakistanis, I don't think it would work out well in the long run. It's sort of like, yeah, let's bring down the czars. We'll send in the communists, and then the communists are worse than the czars for the Germany, from the German perspective. Okay, I think the Taliban government is going to strike Pakistan after Pakistan Air Force conducted air. Yeah, but yeah, I don't see that as a good reason for India to try to ally with them in any sort of way. Just don't. The horsies went for the ride. Yeah, there's a lot of leftover stuff out there, Arna. Yes, the horsies didn't go for the ride. The cavalrymen went for the ride on the horsies. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a lot of the ground fighting. Let's save this. Okay, let's see about getting submarines back to doing their job. I think we'll wait one more turn before going back on that. Convoy line. Contact. Damn. Right out in the ocean. animosity between Afghan is. Yeah. How do I put this? I've known some people from Afghanistan. Well, let me rephrase that. I've met a few people from Afghanistan, and I've read about some of the stuff going on in Afghanistan. My read on it, my take, my understanding is with the Taliban, it's a twofold element. One, there is, shall we say, practical power politics. One group, tribe, whatever you want to call them, trying to dominate others in the region. The other, I do believe, is a religious motivation. So I really do think there is a strong drive for Afghanistan, religious push into Pakistan, and wishing to overthrow a not sufficiently religious government. Afghanistan authorities with bombing anti-Pakistan groups like TTP cycle. Yeah. Some of that I will totally agree is just sort of tribal warfare that's gone on for however long, border and other sorts of disputes and revenge and whatnot and that kind of thing. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to swap these two out. Allow me to create the. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to push on the Russian Navy right now. I know I'm losing some to Russian activity, and I could probably win there, but I'm going to bring my aircraft up, and we'll see what we can do. Uh-huh. We did. All right. New unit. Where do we want to put this German unit? East front, west front. I kind of think the east front because we've got like 8 turns or 7 turns left, and we're really sort of making some headway out here. So okay, a lot of Hungarian units, including some tanks. Well, put the mountain troops there. There, and the tanks here. We'll push north maybe with the tanks. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. As you can tell, I'm far from shore. We're king of the MPP right now. Defeat on the Anzanzo, loss of Urdine lowers Italian morale. We have a victory there. Spanish munition workers strike for better conditions. Mutinies in the Russian army. Some women the right to vote. Progress in infantry warfare development 100%. Level 4 infantry warfare, level 4 trench warfare. Germany developed gas shell production level 3. Ah, okay. Oh, I left these guys here. I should have moved them. Oh well. Dive, 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 dive. Yes, good, dive. Oh shit, there's my ship. Yeah, I should have upgraded some of the Mediterranean naval stuff. Hey, IKB. Went through the mines up here, looks like. You just sink them? Hey, Repeat. How you doing? Hey, Jamnuska, how you doing? I'm doing well. Okay, Britain lost a lot of MPP. And let's save. All right, well. We want to take that this turn and straighten our line out. Yeah, but we should have escorts. Got it. All right, well. And entrench. Move these guys up. Damn. That was a mistake. Okay, well, good. Hmm. Move to these unupgraded guys here. Invert done, yes. Maybe going after Verdun was a mistake, but we will try this out. Yeah, mistake. Okay, we make mistakes sometimes. Yeah. Mistakes were made, but we continue on. Okay, you need to be forced as much as possible. Anybody else along here that will be. What do I do in this game? Well, it's playing World War One. Just attacked with that unit. Let's retreat you back there. You come up here and attack. And oh, you went retreated to the north to get attacked by them. So now they have fighters up here. We have this guy here in our rear, or somewhat rear. These Frenchmen here. You out. You up, attack. And retreat. These guys are going to come down here. And there we go. Take that unit out. So now we have secured the flanks a little better. Pushing up there. Now out on the east front here. Okay, we're going to okay. These two units out here allow me to reinforce these guys. These guys will come up here and entrench. Dig in. Move the tanks up there. Moving artillery up. going to support an attack there next turn. These fighters. Okay, now down here. Does look like if I were to push here, I will take casualties, but I will also maybe take out this unit. Okay, let's upgrade you guys. Not as upgraded as, or as defeated as I wanted. Move you up, entrench. Walk out. Reinforce these guys. These guys will upgrade you. Okay, minor push along the Austrian front, but I think that's okay. Now, I think we want Grodno this turn. We've got 7 shells for barrage. So let's hammer them. Attack with the detachment, weaken them some. Okay, let's swap these 2 units out and take that. Good. These guys are going to move into there. We've now taken Grodno. They have lost that part on the front there. French. Facing more like this. These guys move to there. Shifting my forces up a bit. I think that is okay. Shifting my fortifications more to the south. Now up here. No, doesn't look like good odds. We need artillery, so let's move the artillery up for next turn. Okay, now we've seen here with reconnaissance that this is dig in, yeah, about like that. Reaction points, so they're going to come to So, okay, so we are pushing the Russians on the Eastern Front here. Those guys out and swap these guys out, I think, as well. For next turn to push on there with the artillery, hopefully pounding them very hard. And you guys, level 2, I think we will go for. Well, the East Front we're pushing on. Now, swap these guys out here. We're going to swap these guys out here, which will allow me to reinforce these guys. We now have better troops on the front line there. Swap these guys out and upgrade these guys. I think we have enough. Barely, but yes. We're holding the line here. That's what's important. And we're holding the line down here, and that's also what's important. These 2 units out. Actually, we're going to upgrade these guys. Attack the rebels and attack the rebels. These guys off over to here. Those guys over there. Change their mode. Okay, well, ready to use that to. You'll get slaughtered by their air, I think. Just a bit. Okay, you guys come down to here. Go to there. Sit on that line. You sit on that line. Okay, you're past the enemy's blockade. And you made contact again. Oh boy. Oh, well, you cleared out. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, we're gonna just go hide there a bit. You guys go back and sit on this line. here and this line here to cut off convoys to Russia. Is the volume a bit low? Please, Arno and others jump in, sing. Do you think the volume's low or not? I haven't been changing the volume. Don't know, is it my audio or the game's audio or both? Bit low, Pete says. Okay, well. It's good for Arno. Well, he may have his audio turned up a lot. I will increase the volume some. Hopefully that's a little better. Okay, well, come over here. Hopefully they stay alive. Accept, escort, auto, ground. We're going to grab those guys because I don't want to lose them. Reinforce and upgrade and everything. Okay. Well, for Germany, we can establish a core. We can get another. Oh shit! I forgot. God, I hate this. Wish it would stay however I set it. Ugh. Do another submarine. That's level 2. Okay. Research for Germany. Development. That coming. Let's do that. Well, no, let's not. We don't have enough time. We're like 7 turns from the end. Okay. Purchase for the Austrians. Not really much to produce. But was there anything in Bulgaria? I doubt it. Yeah. Turkey, they just don't have the MPP to do much. Okay. Well, let the Entente have their turn. Yeah. So far, we've kept the Americans out of the war, so that's an achievement. Sultan Mehmed V dies and is succeeded by his brother, who becomes Sultan Mehmed the Sixth. Did I say the first? The fifth? Okay, whatever. Yes. Statistics improvement. Well, Russia has some submarines. Wow. And some British submarines there. Good, you went for Memel to hide in the port. Good move. They've entrenched. I think we're going to go straight north with the A7V tanks, supported by artillery. So far, so good, but they're going to have a lot of ships come after my subs. I see here, and come on, dive. Dive, 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 dive. Yes, good. You dived. You bombed Vienna. Wow, that was painful. Not as painful, but painful enough. Yep. Gotta get new weapons. Okay, the tanks. Well, so far they're holding. The Russians don't have reinforcements to push there. Oh, bring in the colonial troops. Good. I did bring up the volume some. The Midlands. Hey, you know, of course I want people to hear me. Okay, UK's using a bunch of MPP. Norway is moving slightly to the Entente. Probably not enough to switch sides, but we have to be careful. Okay, we'll save this here and see what we can do. All right, well, dreadnought submarines. For some reason that would only hurt me. Don't understand that. I don't know why they would have such good anti-air, but we're going to strike them anyways. Hurt me even worse than expected. Hoping it would retreat some. Well, I guess not. Well, they got to retreat a lot. We do not have very good anti-submarine warfare, so oh shit, I didn't pay attention to where I was drawing. The line was going over. Damn. I don't see a good reason to lose my fleet right now. And in mentioning that, let's come out here. Oh, hello. Contact. Run away with whatever you have left. Okay. To reinforce you, though. Reinforce you then. Okay. Not the results. These guys have 6 bells. Okay, see you. Saying good to have you here, and hello, Eric. Very good. We've pushed them back. Now they may come in and refill that void, but if they don't, we can maybe push on Venice. Well, I say we're winning World War I. We, the Central Powers. Now, on the East Front. Okay. Got 7 shells. Okay, now do we have enough movement factor? Yes, we do. We can move into there. You guys can move up to here and entrench. The tanks don't get to entrench, but the others can. So, here we got 8 shells, so let's losing way too much of my air. Keeping me from being offensive with the air at least. Okay. Let's take this town this turn. This is just a detachment where this is a full core and that's a core. So well, let's rush up there and attack. The others can make it. Couldn't attack anyways, but so we'll stay right where we're at. Come up and entrench. Might as well entrench, just keep pressure up and keep being good defensive advancers. Here. 4 shells. I think that may be enough to take this guy. Well, they retreated. Good. Push on them. Now, that allows me to see about enveloping Vilna. Doing so with entrenchments. There we go. We can also move you up here. You can move to there. No. Do that last one. There we go. Oh, there we go. So we have a general advance here on the Eastern Front as the Russians are succumbing to the Bolsheviks. You out there, and of course. Okay, well, you can be pushed up here, but otherwise a steady line on the Austrian East Front. You will swap for you. We will see about what we're going to do. Really, all we have to do out here is hold the line to achieve our goals. World War I is a very interesting war, and it is, as you know, if you've been around for a little while, has come to interest me a lot more than it had in the past. Don't know how deep I'm going to dive into it because I think its big lesson, you don't need to dive too deep into it. It's sort of secondary lesson, which starting, shall we say, in the second half of the 19th century, that's just starting there, where we see significant military changes within the war itself, right? You look right around the 1690s into the 1700s, meaning the first 10 years into the 18th century. You will see a move from pike and muskets, if you know about those, where they had pike blocks, meaning big square formations of men carrying pikes, the really long spears, and some guys carrying muskets sort of outside of it, and that they would blast you with the muskets, and if you got too close, they would move in with the pikes. Right around like 1690s to the 1700s, at about 20-year period, you start to see the bayonet. The very first bayonets, as far as I know, and I know a bit about them, were plugged bayonets, meaning you stuck the bayonet, the wooden handle, and it was sort of tapered, down the barrel of the musket. The problem with that is once you stuck it there, basically for that battle, you more or less weren't getting it back out. So you just turned your musket into a pike. Not permanently necessarily, long term, but for the battle's sake, because if you don't stick it in hard enough, it can fall out. And you don't want that to happen. So you jam it in there. And then especially if you stick it into anybody or anything like that, it'll get jammed in there further. So it's not impossible, but you're not in the sort of heat of movement. If you have a lull in battle or something, you may be able to get the bayonet out of the musket. I've not really tried to play it around with that. One of my friends, I used to do reenacting of the 18th century because we both had hunting pieces as our long arms or muskets. They didn't have bayonet socket type situations, so he got a plug bayonet and actually had to reshape it down a little bit to fit his, and he'd stick it in there gently or whatever, and it would just sort of kind of stay for quick demonstration purposes, but easy to pull out because he really wasn't jamming it in or anything like that. So it was good in that sense. And demonstrated what they were like. So you had that, and you had things like the Ferguson rifle show up in the American Revolution or American War of Independence or whatever you want to call it. That was just a brief glimmer, but mostly you didn't have any changes even then during the war. So you might learn your lessons because your enemies taught you something or whatever, and then for the next war you came back. Starting in my knowledge, and maybe it's just an American-centric thing, and you didn't pull the trigger by accident. Are we talking about bedroom tips or what? Hello. Silvereri? Is that how you pronounce that? Yes. So, again, it may be my American-centric viewpoint, but I see a lot of development of firearms during the American Civil War. During that roughly 4-year period that the war was happening. But and again, it could be my ignorance, but I don't know of any major technological changes in like the Crimean War or the Franco-Prussian War. I mean, there were changes leading up to it, but you sort of fought the war with what you had. Where World War I, you really, really had a very strong desire by the powers, particularly the great powers, shall we say, to, no, we're not going to attack, but let's hit them with some artillery just for the fun of it. To do massive upgrades during the war. So, and you also see massive, significant changes to tactics as well during the war. So, this is a really sort of fascinating war because of all of that. Let's move you out and go sit on the Italian line. Let's come you up here, deploy some mines. No. Back. Deploy mines and then come back in. There we go. So yeah, it's really starting to fascinate me. And of course the big lessons, but I don't know if we need to talk. I need to learn the war in detail to learn, but the inabilities of societal structures to see outside of their box. They couldn't understand their the futility of continue to fighting the war once it sort of stalemated. They couldn't see that. It just doesn't seem like something that... I'm sure that there were some individuals that could, but the structures couldn't. I talked to my friend Dino mostly on Sundays. I wish he was here for some of this stuff because he knows, especially from the German side, he is German, World War I much better than I do. But basically the civil government in Germany loses all real power to the military government with World War I, so they can't effectively object. I mean, especially without seeming like some sort of traitors or defeatists like they were later claimed to sort of be, stab in the back, which really wasn't the case in my opinion. Germany just straight up lost the war. This wasn't something really to be disputed. This wasn't any sort of civil government betraying the frontline soldiers who were being successful or something. No, it was a collapse of the German army. Completely a collapse of the German army. Sunk cost fallacy? Yes, there is that. I don't know how much, and I'm going to paraphrase my understanding of that is you've already invested X amount into something. You might as well put in more to complete the thing, whether it's like completing a movie project or building a bridge or there was the big dig. It was some sort of tunneling thing back up in Boston that took an extra 10 years and billions of dollars more, something like that. Instead of going, oh, hey, we've spent $1 billion and it's going to be, and we're 10% of the way done. It was supposed to be $100 million and we're nowhere near completing it. Instead of just writing it off as a loss, you continue to dump money into it. Now, maybe you complete the project, obviously by the time you get the Americans in, though I would still say the Entente was, at least on the Western Front, was still doing better than the Germans. They weren't starving to death like the Germans were. That the Western Allies, and I'm saying it that way because we see what happens with the Russians that become the Bolsheviks. The Western Allies are still having a better time of it than Germany, but it's really the Americans that come in and win the war for them, and it is. Is it worth pushing down the rivers into Iraq? You're asking the question. I don't see why. We have a supply issue. As you can see here right now, what we can see, these ones and twos, when they come out of Tikrit and Ramadi and push into here, they get ones and twos up to the front. And when they attack, I mean, they almost devastated this unit. It went down to strength of 1 when it was sitting here. And they're much more upgraded than my forces, I believe. So when they come up here and they basically win a battle, they have to retreat back to Krit, however you want to pronounce that, because they don't have enough supply to reinforce. So they're sort of at the end of their supply tether, and I moved back here where I had some decent supply levels to hopefully create this desert, if you will, in between us to hold. So the Turks will need either massive, and we have like 6 turns remaining after this. So the Turks will either need massive upgrades to their forces. We can see the Bulgarians are a little bit upgraded here that are helping. Massive upgrades. And do we really want to, if we have anywhere to weaken? Because most of these are detachment, 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 detachment. So we've just got, and this core is only at half strength. We could bring it all the way up, of course, but we're, you know, sort of light on forces here, that we're going to be really low on supply until we take some towns. So I don't see that, and we want to really hold the British back. If we can keep Jerusalem, if we can keep Medina here, we're keeping the Turks from collapsing, you know. And sure the Russians have pushed all the way into here, but there's no ability for them to push out. I just don't really have because this is a primary supply source. So even if I were to like concentrate really hard on here, they might be able to hold out here. So this is just delaying them. I started many turns ago to push on the Eastern Front to relieve the Turkish because they were pushing down there. But so yeah, you have the sunk cost fallacy, but you just also have, I think it's just, I think it's more they couldn't see a way out of the war. And so they just kept fighting. And that destroys society. I think that's a good way to put it. Britain is one of the nations who has the least damage. Countries like Spain, who didn't get into it, and Portugal, who did, but just barely, they're already, particularly Spain, is already reeling from Napoleon's invasion in the Peninsula War still. And in many ways, they're still dealing with it, I would say, today, because Spain in 1700, shall we say, is one of, if not one of, the greatest nations and empire on the planet. At least that's how they saw themselves. You then have the War of Spanish Succession that eventually, in the 18th century, eventually gets the Bourbons on the throne of Spain and not the Habsburgs. But if you realize, I believe in 1700, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, it was still a Habsburg throne. So you had Austria, the Austrian Netherlands, lots of Italian possessions, both in northern and southern Italy. And of course, the New World and places like the Philippines, which were rich. And so Spain is on top of it all, but without an industrious culture, is what I would say. Their most industrious culture is up in the Spanish Netherlands. And of course, the northern Netherlands gets its independence, and the southern Spanish Netherlands later becomes the Habsburg or Austrian Netherlands. Once the Habsburgs lose the Spanish throne, they're the most industrious people, and they're the sort of rebellious people within it. So that, and they're living their empire partially on trade and partially on just extracting resources, particularly gold and silver, but extracting, including, which is related to trade, things like, sugar and other spices from the other parts of the world. And they've been in decline, and it's really just the complete disruption of their society with the Napoleon invasion of Spain and him trying to put his brother Joseph does put him on the throne of Spain for a while, but So Spain is, its society is still feeling the effects of that today. And the rest of Western society is basically doomed. And the sort of best of the major powers, at least, I mean, we can talk about small nations like Switzerland or even the Netherlands. Yeah, they had their, Dutch East Indies, but more or less they're still a small nation. Is the British. They come out with the least damage, but still it's, and of course Britain is trying to destroy itself as much as it can right now. Its damage really, really happens in World War II. Its society is destroyed in World War II. You just have the remnants of its previous society left. Now, hey Beam Slam. Greetings. Yes, we're still at war at this late date. Yes, we have like 6 turns left. Once they had suffered huge casualties, they were not rational actors calculating costs and benefits anymore. They were driven by vengeance and bitterness. Yeah, I'll agree with the vengeance and bitterness. I think the rationality of humanity is overplayed. Almost every historian I've ever, and I'm talking not, I've talked to a few people that we call historians that, write history books and whatnot. Just not really can say that I've known them, but interacted with them a little bit. I've known more history professors and that kind of stuff. And about every history book I read, and I recently saw an interview with Dan Snow, I believe. And even he admits that he's something of a Marxist, or is maybe overly influenced by Marx. Not a communist. I don't know that he's a communist. But Marx also, you have to look at and understand Marx, both his communism and whatnot. But Marx has massive impact on studying of history, because Marx was a historian. Marx posits everything in history as economics, which is rationality. You invade wherever because they have something that you want economically. Where I think emotion of various types is a much bigger driver of human decisions. Okay. Now, economics is reality in the sense that you go to war with somebody. Let's say you're Russian, you go to war with somebody like Germany. And you may have huge numbers of people. And you may be able to grow plenty of food for your people. But you may not be able to build artillery shells at a rate that you can compete with throwing them at the British, or not the Germans or the Austrians, that they can throw artillery shells at you. So that's the reality of the situation. Now, you can try to use strategy, tactics, what I call sort of maneuver and decision, to win battles quickly. Have enough artillery shells on hand, surround large numbers of the enemy forces, compel them to lose, whether they surrender, get killed, run away, whatever, and move in and be victorious, even though economically or industrially, or however you want to say it, you're in a weaker position. You have that ability. Now, World War I comes to a grinding attritional warfare. So that's the other type of warfare is attritional, and that the economic reality. So there is economic realities. Marx is right about that, but I don't think it. It's in maybe the top 5, definitely the top 10 reasons for war. But if we just go down to emotion, whether it's religion, nationalism, my tribe over your tribe, revenge, bitterness, whatever, our hats are better than your hats, or whatever it is that's driving warfare, or human endeavors beyond warfare as well. I think it's emotion, but there's different types of emotions driving it. That's why economics is not just second. I mean, if you lump all of the different emotions together, yeah, it would be secondary reason. But I really just, and I don't subscribe to it to being selfishness, meaning if Britain were to peace out at some point, that either King George and or what would it be, Lloyd George? I don't know all the prime ministers right around that period, but or Lloyd George or whatever, they're worried about losing their jobs. Meaning the king have to abdicate and let another member of the family come to power, or the prime minister, hey, I won't be prime minister anymore, I won't be important. No, I think both of them would have been willing to lose their jobs. They're worried about collapse of their society, revolution, if you will. That if they were to leave, it's not just, oh well, King George the whatever, the 5th was it, I think, at the time, were to abdicate, and his son or brother or cousin or whoever would be the most likely at that stage to step in. Now, that would be acceptable. But no, but maybe the collapse of the monarchy. But the monarchy isn't just, oh, hey, my family and my, our position of powers. That would then may bring down the aristocracy, which was still a very real thing in Britain, which would bring down societal order, and which would be chaos. So they want to keep away from having chaos happen. And the prime minister, it's not just him or his government, but if he collapses, yeah, he could take the hit, maybe, but you have all that bitterness and whatnot that would be very real, that the people might still revolt. Let's see, IKB says, visited a Spanish railway museum a few years ago. Almost all the locos were imported. Yes. It has been said that World War I is when the world stopped making sense. Well, I think this goes, and I'm trying to, and I know some other people are working on it, including Rudyard Lynch of What Alt Hist is also working on too, but formulating, putting into words how we change from being a society of human interaction, that's some of my hardest things to put into words, into what I call cogs and formulas. Again, if you haven't been paying attention, that people can be treated like cogs, that most people can do most jobs with just the right type of training. Sure that there's some people that have better talents at this or that or this other thing, but what's really important is the training. And this is where you also find people that criticize people like Rudyard Lynch or Charlie Kirk, and that neither of them may have completed a bachelor's degree in college, let alone a master's or a doctorate. And so they must be dismissed because we have completed this training, and I'm, somebody is saying I'm a doctorate in philosophy and history, and I have 4 or 5 doctorates, so I must be better at cogitating and understanding the world than somebody who hasn't completed certain qualifications. Now, if you look at particularly Rudyard Lynch, he reads so many books. He must read very, very fast. And I believe him when he says he's reading these books. And he's consuming them, and he's internalizing enough of them. And for making his videos, he's at least running around with a highlighter to highlight important points out of the books to make the videos, but he's internalizing the message. But cogs and then formulas. We're fighting over, if you just have the right formula, whether it's democracy or dictatorship or whatever your organization, or how what the structure of your company is, and what if you just have the right formula, you have success. And so the world made sense, the Western world made sense prior to World War I. Yes, there were democracies in France. And they'd gone back between democracies and monarchies and, let's call it, dictatorships with Napoleon III. That's pseudo-monarchy, but not a sort of a ancient monarchy. And, so we learned that they can't see outside of their box, and they push so hard that they destroy basically every element of organized society to one degree or another. This is why religion has lost a lot of its importance in Europe and is losing even more. And so this, this is why World War I is so important to me now. Though I will very readily admit that I'm not planning on overly studying it, because I think I understand the essence of it. Okay, yes, I know I was blathering on. Okay, back to the naval war here. Somewhat line of defense against these submarines. Let's move you out. Here. Now our subs out here. Let's put you on this line here. That line there. You can come all the way down to there. You guys come to here. You guys come to here. Yeah, let's just overflood this. That way we're trying to choke the British out. We're going to stay up here. These guys are going to come here, get across here, and head out this way. These guys are almost dead. Okay, I think, let's look at new unit deployment. Okay, Austrian Mountain Corps. Put them up there. Now we'll see about that next turn. We're holding well enough. Purchasing units, they're basically built out. So are the Germans and the Bulgarians. Turks just don't have enough MPP to build much. And a lot of time left to do it, but I think we'll save it. And let's quickly, before I just dismiss, make sure I've reinforced what I can out here. Yep, okay. U.S. protests the sinking of its merchantmen. So, as IKB says, Russian army is weakened by mutinies and desertions. The locomotives for the Spanish railways were foreign built, so they did not have the industry to build it. Italy in the 19th century goes through wars of unification under Garibaldi, and they're also not very industrious as a nation or people. So, fighter development, okay. And so Italy, and then of course Italy gets into World War I and is rather devastated by the war itself as well. Germany is still a very new country. You know, as a modern nation, if you will, you know, because it just comes about with Hindenburg, no, Bismarck, sorry. Bismarck, uh-oh, those destroyers don't look like they're going to last long. Oh, maybe they will, who knows. Bismarck creating the nation. You know, sure, Bavaria and Prussia and Hanover, they're old, but the new Germany as a unified nation is very new. And then, of course, it's devastated by World War I. Oop, there we go. We've lost our destroyers there. And, which a lot of people don't realize, France is industrially strong, but is, ooh, they got hit pretty hard. That depends on how bad we'd be hit now. It's, you know, like I say, been in chaos since the French Revolution through the 19th century, going back and forth between the various factions. And I will stand by my statement that America wins World War I. Yeah, I know, a lot more British people, a lot more French, particularly in Germans, but also Russians die in the war. Most assuredly. But the reason Russia lasts as long as it does is because of American arms or arms made in America, sometimes things like the Remington rolling block even, but also rather good Winchesters that are lever actions but made in the Russian calibers, and also making other weapons in the Russian calibers. You got the Americans making the P-14, which is a somewhat copy of a Mauser rifle for the British, and other, you know, massive industrial outputs that allow the French and the British and the Russians to do as well as they do. So it's not necessarily American soldiers, but American industry that somewhat emotionally, but definitely strategically, is open to the Western Allies and not to the Germans. Ooh, painful. They finally attacked with their tanks. Not unexpected with a solid attack from the attacks. Now that is a little bit unexpected. I thought we would hold better there, and it looks like we're going to lose that again. But no, this isn't just some American saying America #1, we won World War I. No, there's reasonable arguments, I would say. I wouldn't say it if we didn't also join the war, even though we fought hard and we fought well where win and where we did fight, but it wasn't most of the fighting or anything like that on the Western Front, but it was even a greater commitment to industrially supporting the Western allies at that point. Gamer is doing worse than in history. Russia had pieced out at this point. I don't think so. I mean, you're right. Russia had. I'm not arguing the Russia point. No, you're right about that. I think, even though we just did lose Toronto, Bolshevik revolution leads to disorder in the army. I think we're doing very well on the Western Front and the Italian front. Okay, sabotage. British ace Edward McManus is shot down and killed. Bolsheviks take power in Russia. Destroyer sunk. Bombing damage. Britain lost massive amounts of MPP. And that's got to hurt some. And realize fairly early on, not only have we fully taken out Belgium, which was not done in World War I, we pushed all the way to Boulogne here and have that very nice straight line. And I would say we have caused a lot more casualties compared to our losses. So I would say we're doing better. We're not on the East Front, but we are about ready to take this. Let's put it. Let's put 3. Spend the shells, not the lives. You come up and entrench. You can't entrench, but you can, so you come up and entrench. You need revenge for a Second World War. Well, no need for a German. Revenge? What about the French? They might feel they need to have another war. You guys entrench, no more that way. You come up and entrench. Okay, you guys. Because, look, I am definitely not the best historian on France, but you don't think the French were looking for revenge from the Franco-Prussian War and wanting their territory back? We're itching for it, if you will. And now that here that it looks like the Germans are going to hold on to Alsace-Lorraine and maybe acquire Belgium, whether as a protectorate or as a, integrated into the Reich. And so if this line of control holds at the end of the war, now, of course, I, being a relatively rational person about this, I'd give up this part of French territory here. And let's remove the units. I may, whatever this river here is, but Brussels and Antwerp, I may be even willing to give this sort of line of Belgium back. But keep Liège, because it's a highly industrialized area. Of course, keep Luxembourg. Keep back here, obviously. And this way, it would give me, and whether maybe even give that back to the Belgians. Just carve off this area of here, which would give me great access. I mean, they could build the Maginot Line after this, but which would give me great access to, from here all the way up to here, to really put a, a broad front that you can concentrate in one spot on to push in. And I would also, if I'm giving up Belgium, big if, but if I'm giving up Belgium, and I would be willing to, because I'm not some German nationalist that no ground shall ever be given up after German lives are spent or anything like that, I would insist, some of those cool old star forts, you can leave that, because that's a nothing of a thing. That's just a historical anachronism, and sure, they could be still, even to this day, used as sort of good defenses against certain types of attack, but they can't hold out. They're not some sort of fortress that's going to hold out for any length of time. But any sort of destroy or not allow any, basically by this point, not allow a building of any strong defenses in Belgium as part of its agreement to give the territory back, and just very much wait and watch that if they start to build it, well, you invade. They broke the treaty, so you go in and attack. And so I see this as being a very much improvement to Germany, and France would be wanting revenge. Depends how pacifist France would be, I guess. Historically, they were very much pacifist because of the losses in World War I. Okay. Again, not the biggest historian on France or my area, but I would argue they weren't very much pacifists after World War I. There was a significant pacifist movement, but I don't think it dominated politics. I think the biggest problem in World War II is sort of a dual factor. One, because their nation is destroyed by World War I, even though they are on the winning side. They talk about the lost generation or whatever. They've been gutted of manpower, and they're afraid of that happening to them again. So they look for a very defensive, very not costing in manpower ways to fight war, and two, a very divided nation, but not primarily divided on pacifism. It's, if you will, right, left, and center. And even you got the rights, well, are you a fascist, or are you a Bonapartist, or are you a Bourbonist? What sort of extreme right wing are you in France? And the Bourbonists who, look back to the king and the Vendée, which is out, I think, in here. Their sort of fight against the godless revolutionaries of the French Revolution, is a very strong Christian base. Or you've got the fascists, which they may be Christian, but they're very materialistically right-leaning or whatever. And then, of course, you have various flavors of socialism and communism and whatnot. And although not so much the communists maybe, but a lot of the socialists, they may be still fairly nationalistic. But, they disagree with the center, let alone the right. So, you have a very divided France. So I would see that, at least that's my take on France. It's more of its cultural, social, political divisions than pacifism that allow the German easy victory in World War II. Okay, you need to entrench, because I did notice you weren't entrenched. No, you're not entrenched, and you're just a detachment, but I think we will still bring you up. And Austria is doing great. I mean, Austria did not take out Greece. We've taken out Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania. We've kept Romania out of the war, so Romania is not in the war. We have Bulgaria, we have Turkey. Turkey has stayed in the war and is not collapsing. So I see, folk, that I'm doing much better than the Germans did in World War I. That's how I see it. We'll see how the game sees it here in a moment. Trench. Moving the detachment down so that they can entrench. You swing it that way. You come down and entrench. There we go. Now, I think taking there is more important. French. Griffin tanks seem pretty damn weak. To the east, then. Ooh, that like a very likely successful attack. Go in so you can open entrench, and you move into the vacuum there. Okay, well, I just don't feel like taking losses. I mean, to the Russian fleet. I don't know how the Bolsheviks are going to work out now that they're in power. These guys are important, but these guys are not, so let's withdraw them. Well, I hear you about maneuver, but I'm playing pretty well, I think, by being passively aggressive. So, getting artillery up where I can. I mean, I can. And I've been very attritional with the Russians as opposed to trying to be decisive. Okay. Remembering to. Subs don't know what will get built in enough time. Cool. Here, yeah, like there. I think they'll do okay holding out. I hope. Let's. Okay, we have opportunity to end the war in the East by signing a peace treaty with the Bolshevik government at Brest-Litovsk. The treaty will lead to creation of a number of new states in the East. There will also be economic benefits that we can demand that Russia pays 300 MPP as compensation to the German investors who have lost their assets due to the war and revolution. Would you like to sign the peace treaty with and remove Russia from the war? Yes! Okay, Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Russia withdraws from the war and withdraws from the war. I was going to say the East, but yes. Okay. Ukraine declares its independence. Damn these Ukrainians always declaring independence. Bessarabia from Russia and votes to unite with Romania. Crimean People's Republic declares independence from Russia. Estonia declares independence. Notice my forces have magically teleported back into Germany. Central Poland. Oh shit, I forgot to do that. Naval shit. Ouch. Okay. I forgot. That's why I should have saved. But I'm not refight all of that just to do this naval stuff at this point. Had I saved like I should have, then I would go back and redo the Navy, because that just... a very poor... I guess this is just the British breaking the German code so they get to pound on my submarines really hard. Dive. Dive. No, I said dive. Dive. Oh, there we go, finally. So they still get hurt. Well, these guys did come out. Well, I don't know. But... good job. Good job. Yes, room 40 broke the German naval code. I didn't remember the room number, but I do know what you're talking about. Uh-oh. Well, I think we'll take it back. Okay, disaffected German soldiers spread Bolshevik ideas in Germany. I don't see now. I'm sure there would be some disaffected soldiers, but since we're doing so well, I think this is probably overplayed, in my opinion. I don't know how big the effect is. Progress movement calls for USA prepare for war. Well, British national morale below 50%. French national morale below 25%. Okay, well. Importance of Ukraine grains at place. Now that we have taken Russia out of the war, it is important that we do not lose our strong position in the east. We are currently receiving grain imports from Ukraine, and these imports are very useful in maintaining German people's determination to continue the war until victory. If we do not maintain sufficient forces near Warsaw to discourage hostile attempts to overthrow the new Ukrainian government, then we risk losing these imports. This could be catastrophic. Ensure that 4 German units are kept at all times within 8 hexes of Moscow. Okay. Oh, not Moscow, Warsaw. But why am I reading it that way? I don't know. Warsaw. To fully benefit from the economic and morale benefits from Ukrainian grain, keep 12 German units within this radius if possible. Okay. So 8 hexes, 12 German units. So we need to get units near, well, I mean, there may be some 8 units, I don't know, or 8 hexes. Okay, they say units. They don't say strength of units. So I, if you've noticed, am moving up detachments. There. Eight there. Okay, so we don't currently possess Ukraine, but they're sending in massive amounts of grain. Romania has expanded, but they are still out of the war. Crimea is some sort of state. Now Turkey has gained territories, so march into there. March up to there. And that will very much stabilize our front. Well, I think we'll pick this up next week. I want to thank IKB, Arno, Beam Slam, Folk, for hanging out. Eric, if you're still around, Jamnuska, if you're still around, for hanging out with me, and Repeat. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. There will be no War Thunder tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm still working on moving from California to my secret mountain base in Arizona. It's right off the, no, not that I have it as secret, not that it's in Arizona. So I'm having a worker come tomorrow to help me deal with my garage. Moving stuff around, and starting before we normally start War Thunder. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. I'm going to save this again. But we should be back next week with more Strategic Command. It did win in the poll. That's why we're playing this and not Manor Lords. And maybe more War Thunder next week. We'll have to see about that, just what's going on, where I am at. So maybe, Arno, maybe. the biggest priority right now in my life is getting everything to Arizona. That is just it. So once I'm there, then we can see about other things. But yeah, so thank you all. So see you next week for more Strategic Command, unless something comes up important. But yeah, I should be here next Saturday.